He doesn't look at you and say, you can clearly see me and all the angels. What's wrong with you? No, he says, I can see that you're serving me even though you can't see me. The title of my message is Snow Lion. Say that with me on three. 1, 2, 3. Snow Lion. You're not going to find those two words back to back in the Bible. I'll tell you where I'm getting the title from. When I was just a little tot, my father used to read me this book called Snow Lion. So I'm going to tell you the whole story in about like a minute and a half, if you believe that. But I'm going to try for a minute and a half. There was a lion, and he was friends with the giraffe and friends with the hippopotamus. He was friends with the bear. And they were hot in the jungle. They could not find water. There was a drought. They were in tremendous heat exhaustion. Now, I think Dr. Seuss wrote the book, and so I'm not using his exact words because all of his words rhyme, and I can't do that. But you're getting the point. So the lion looked at his friends and said, I can't take it anymore. I'm going to go find water. And so he left, and the hippopotamus and the giraffe and the bear, they were like, no, you need to stay here. You need to stay here. Just stay here. And the lion's like, why would I stay here and just die? I'm going to find water. And so he started marching through the jungle, and then he started marching through the desert. And the heat became so unbearable that it sucked the strength right out of him, and he just fell over and fainted. When he woke up the next morning, all of a sudden he was covered in snow. And he had never seen snow before. So he picked up the snow to try to smell it, and it had no smell. He crunched it, and it packed. He picked it up again and tasted it. It had no taste, but it had the same effect on his tongue as water. He couldn't believe it. He wasn't hot anymore. In fact, he was kind of cold. He wasn't thirsty anymore. He was just packing his mouth with all this snow. He was eating and drinking at the same time. He was blowing his little lion mind. So he decides, I'm going to bring this back to my friend giraffe, my friend hippo, my friend the bear. And so he takes his backpack, starts filling it up with snow, and starts marching back. He goes back through the desert and back through the jungle, and he comes up to him. The hippo and the giraffe and the bear, they're laying there, tongues hanging out of their mouth, moaning in the heat. He says, don't worry about it, I'm here. He takes his backpack off and he goes, I found some white fluffy stuff. I've never seen this in my life. He takes it and he dumps his backpack upside down, and a puddle of water ends up on the ground. And he says, I don't know what happened. So he goes back and he puts it in a cooler. Not a cooler, a lunchbox. He puts it in a lunchbox. He puts more in his backpack. He shoves it in a cup. He puts it on top. He brings it back. He puts extra in his hat. He's carrying it all back. Once again, a puddle falls on the ground. So he looks at the giraffe. He looks at the hippo. He looks at the bear, and he says, look, you're going to have to come with me. If you want to experience what I've experienced, you're going to have to come with me. Are you ahead of me? Are you ahead of me? You already know where I'm going? Let me finish it anyway. So the hippo, the bear, and the giraffe, they follow him. They take it. They go for it. Faith is taking the first step even though you can't see the entire staircase. They follow the lion all the way out. They all fall asleep because the heat is unbearable. But the lion has one eye open. He knows what's going to happen. He knows that once he takes the journey, once he takes the step of faith, something will happen. Are you ahead of me? Are you good? We all fall asleep. The doubters, they were like, I'm doubting, I'm full of doubt, but I'll take at least a step. Sometimes when you're full of doubt and you just take one step, the Lord knows you're full of doubt. In Psalms 103, verse 12 or 13, it says this, I know your frame. I can see that you are made from dust. He doesn't look at you and say, you can clearly see me and all the angels. What's wrong with you? No, he says, I can see that you're serving me even though you can't see me. And I love you for that. So you're giving me the best you got. I'm going to blow your mind. Has God ever blown your mind before? Like, I can't believe, let me hear you. I can't believe you just did that. I can't believe it. Anyway, to get to the end of the story, they wake up and all four of them are throwing this white fluffy stuff in the air. They're enjoying it. They go back to the jungle and they say, I can't bring it back. You're going to have to come with us if you want to go. And they were all, they shared it all with the jungle themselves. I am going to try to stretch my inadequate vocabulary to describe the Holy Spirit. But at the end of the service, it's going to end up the same way the story of the snow lion ended up. You are going to have to scratch your chin, itch your head, and say to yourself, do I want to go a little bit further? And I'll say this, if you're afraid to go too far, you will never go far enough. You'll never go far enough. There has to be something in you that says, I am all in on this. I don't do weddings anymore because it just got to be too much. But when I did, I would say, I don't tie slip knots. This is the only one I'm going to do for you. I'm not going to do another marriage for you. This is it. You're all in. Got it? Only one person walked out when I said that. Let me dive into this Holy Spirit concept. I'm going to talk about three things. Number one, I'm going to talk about the action that the Holy Spirit takes. Number two, I'm going to talk about the personality of the Holy Spirit. You can clearly look at me and you can see my personality. You can't see the Holy Spirit, so I'm going to try to describe his personality. I will fail, but I'm going to do my best. And then I'm going to talk about the proximity with the Holy Spirit, how close you are to him. But first, the actions. This is what the Holy Spirit does. What is the Holy Spirit? The Holy Spirit is, in the Hebrew, it's ruach. It's the breath of God. It's the presence of God around you. When Jesus was on the earth, God was in physical form. When Jesus went to heaven, he said this in John 14:26. He said, the Comforter, the Holy Spirit, whom the Father will send in my name, will teach you all things and bring everything that I have ever said to your remembrance. So the first thing that the Holy Spirit does is he comforts you in a way that a human being can't do. Have you ever been at the bottom of the barrel, like bottom, and somebody tries to make everything all better, and you're looking at them and you're thinking to yourself, you're not going to make this better. You can't make this better. I'm going through hell right now, and you showed up with a glass of water. You can't make this better. It's very frustrating. But I want you to remind yourself of all the times that you were helped by God, and you didn't know it in the moment, but when you look back, you know there's no way I could have got out of that if God had not carried me out of it. Does anyone have a story like that? Come on, let me hear you. Does anybody? There's no way. There's no way. Sometimes when our faith in God has dropped, it's only because our memory has failed us. Remind yourself, if you've been through a divorce, what that felt like and how low you were. And look at you now. How has God come up behind you and lifted you up? How did you get out of that? When you were laying in bed, sick, you don't even have enough strength to roll over to the other side of the bed. How did you get out of that? When you were just mumbling Jesus, you were just saying his name over and over again because you didn't have enough strength to do anything else. How many of you, just raise your hand if you've ever been in a situation where you don't have the faith or the strength to pray, so you just say Jesus over and over again. Have you ever been there? Have you ever been there? Come on, participate with me. Have you ever been there? Remind yourself, because that's what the Holy Spirit does. He comforts you. In the most unconventional ways, he has moved you right along. And then, not only does he comfort you, but he teaches you. That's what it says in John 14:26. It says he will teach you. Almost every time I pray, what I do is I set my alarm. I'm not coming out until this time, and I set my alarm. Well, sometimes, for example, if I set my alarm for 2 hours, I'm not coming out. I'm going to pray for 2 hours. I'm not coming out. If this doesn't go well, then I'm going to just stare at the wall. I'm not going out. Well, sometimes I'll be 4 minutes in and it feels like 40 minutes. And I'm like, am I almost done yet? And I've only been praying for 4 minutes. And I'll say to the Holy Spirit, you're going to have to help me. You're going to have to help me. You're going to have to help me. If you don't help me, this is going to be a big waste of time for me and for God. You're going to have to help me. And the Holy Spirit's always faithful to come in and start building momentum while I'm there. And all of a sudden, I'm not standing there watching paint dry. All of a sudden, I can feel the presence of God. And then 20 minutes later, same thing. All of a sudden, it starts feeling boring. It starts feeling dry. And I said, I'm not leaving until the alarm goes off. You're going to have to help me. You're going to have to help me. That's what the Holy Spirit does. He comes in and he helps you. He brings things to your mind. He causes this connection with the creator of the universe. Sometimes we got to remember who he is. In Job 12:10, it says this: the life of every living thing and the breath of every human is in his hand. This is what the Holy Spirit does. In Acts 1:8, it says, when the Spirit comes upon you, you shall receive power. You will be my witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. What does that mean? To be a witness. That means that when people see you, they see the power and the love of God. They can sense it. They can sense it. This is a promise to you. You say, I'm not experiencing that. That doesn't mean that it's not a promise to you. It just means that you haven't experienced it yet. But once you experience it, It's like chewing bubble gum after that. It's easy. You know how God moves. You know how the Spirit moves. You can hear his voice. But all of that has everything to do with whether or not you are familiar with his personality. Number two, the personality of Jesus, of the Holy Spirit. What is he like? In Galatians chapter 5, verse 22, it describes his personality. Describes it for us in black and white. It says this: it's full of love, joy, peace. Love, joy, peace. What's the other one? What? Thank you. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Like when you think that you have exhausted the Holy Spirit and he's frustrated, you just back up and go, no, 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 no. He's all patient. He is gentle. He's full of self-control. If he wanted to destroy you, he would have did it just by blinking his eyes. He's full of love. He's full of joy. He's always in a good mood. This is who the Holy Spirit is. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. That's who he is. If you were to describe me, you'd say some bald-headed, crazy Italian. That's the description for Frankie. But when you go to describe the Holy Spirit, love, joy, that's who he is. But there's two things that he says, please don't do this to me. Please, don't do this to me. Number one, in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 19, it says, don't quench me. We're going to be in relationship with each other, but don't quench me. Don't quench me. Imagine having a water hose. And water's coming through and you're spraying everything you can find. And then all of a sudden you want to stop the water from coming out of the hose, but you're not ready to go back and turn it off. What do? You quench it. You bend the hose and hold it in your hand. So now no water can come out. And the Holy Spirit says, please don't do that to me. What does quenching mean? It's exactly what I just illustrated. It's to keep from flowing. The Holy Spirit wants to compel you, flow through you. He wants to push you towards the presence of God. And you will know this when these divine thoughts start coming to your mind. I should probably go pray. I think I'm going to read the Bible. I think I'm going to just write a sermon. I may never preach it, but I'm going to write a sermon. I'm going to open up my diary and I'm going to write. I think I'm going to invite them to church. I think. It's not you thinking, girlfriend. It's not you thinking. I know it sounds like you, but it's not you. It's the Holy Spirit just moving right through you. See, the intention of the Holy Spirit is to bless you and then flow through you. But when you start having these thoughts and you say, no, 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 two things happen. Number one, you're quenching the Holy Spirit. And number two, you'll stop having those thoughts. You'll remember when you used to have those thoughts because you've quenched the Holy Spirit. The second thing, he says, please don't do this. It's in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 30. He says this, don't grieve me. Don't hurt me. Which is crazy because we're talking about the Spirit of God. And he's saying, you please don't hurt me. How do we hurt the Holy Spirit? We grieve the Holy Spirit when we ask him to stand there as we participate in the darkness. He is so faithful. He is so kind. He is so patient. He's not going to leave you. But you're going to ask him to stand there and watch as we participate in the darkness. You know, the Bible is so valuable because it puts in black and white the points that the Lord wants us to know. And he describes exactly what the darkness looks like so that we don't have to argue about it. Oh, that's not our darkness. This is the darkness. That's not the darkness. No. We don't have to argue about it. We don't have to argue about it because it's in black and white. It's like right there. It's right there. There's 6 descriptions of exactly what the darkness is. So we never have to argue. We never have to wonder. You know exactly what it is. Romans 13:13. It says this, because you belong to the light, do not participate in the darkness by doing the following 6 things. Crystal clear. Everybody say crystal clear. It says wild parties, drunkenness, sexual promiscuity, immoral living, quarreling, fighting, arguing, and jealousy. That covers it all. When you go and you are doing, let's just pick one, sexual promiscuity, the Holy Spirit is standing right next to you and he is being mocked by every demon in the room. He's standing next to you and saying, this is my faithful daughter. This is my faithful son. And they are looking and going, he's not faithful. Look what he's doing right now. She's not faithful. Look what she's doing right now. And the Holy Spirit is being mocked by the dark world. And the Holy Spirit, it grieves him. It grieves him. When we get into arguments, it grieves him. Grieves him. Why? Because he's standing right next to him. He's standing right next to you. And he's watching you degrade who he also loves. If there's any parents in the room who has more than one kid, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Because it infuriates you when your kids are fighting against each other. You're thinking to yourself, your family, we are all we got. Stop it. Are you with me? Say yes. Put your hands together. Number 3, proximity. See, what you hear and what you see depends greatly upon where you are standing. See, I have a friend. 3 years ago, he told me, my business, I am hardly making any money. It's going to be my worst year ever. He says, my wife has lost 3 babies, and I'm having trouble paying the rent. I'm not God, but I can point to him. I said, the closer you get to the inside circle of the family. See, there are concentric circles. The further out, you got these core people who are pursuing God. And then you got the congregation that's kind of watching from the outside. And then you got the crowd that's way, way, way outside. I said, the more you work your way into this remnant of believers that believe in God, I only live to serve you. When you cross that bridge and your actions reflect your belief, you will start seeing God move in ways that you've never seen him before. 2 years later, he's making more money than he's ever made. He's making more money than his parents have ever made. He's got a beautiful baby girl, and he just bought a house 2 weeks ago. That's how God takes an entire life and brings it to a level that it's never been before. Some things only God can do.